Just a tiny little bit of context for this. I was accused of only writing incredibly depressing poems about genocide. So I decided to write a poem about the 1990 Eurovision Song Contest, which is the best year of Eurovision. And then that kind of turned into an incredibly depressing poem about the Bosnian genocide. It's just something that happens. So yeah, this poem is called Kada da Ludojemo, which is Serbo-Croatian for Let's Go Crazy. We have many bands playing for us tonight, and just as in an orchestra the wind instruments, the keyboard and percussionists and the string instruments sit together, so in Yugoslavia we have many different climates, cuisines, and of course cultural influences all together next to each other. With his arms outstretched, can you see him? Over the past 5 years, the images have become familiar. It is not a polemic. It is not against the failure of the West to protect the weak, against the strong, or even to honor its own promises, to condemn or to condone or to justify any of the players in the unfolding tragedies. What happened, why, and at whose behest? Yugoslavia did not die a natural death. I could see everyone lying in the streets, people in pieces, a lot of blood. This is not the future that I remember. Fading memory, you burn with fire and shine like the root of a wondrous flower. The mirror of mystery, the root in all forgetting. Send us your thoughts on our pilgrim's way. Linguistic as much as genetic, black soil, green ocean, grey sand, bordering mountains, coral, diamond, mahogany, brass. People from other places adrift, indistinct, purposeless hatred. A table of skulls, a field of bones, neat lines of blue-green coffins. That night the soup tasted of corpses, and we were born in nations that no longer exist. We came from borders that shift over mountains. Over the next 3 years, when 1,000 shells a day would fall on the city, things were trapped in brains, exploding, little holes, big holes, lacerated fractures. A memory, a sensation, an individual thought, fading. Liminal nation, liminal earth. At the root of neologism, to be Raphael Lemkin, who knew the Greek word genos could mean a race, a group, a people, and that the Latin suffix side refers to the act of killing. That a newspaper knew, or that it was broadcast on television. Did you acknowledge it then? Did it fade from your memory? Did it fade from our memory? Television screen, the mirror of all mystery, scanline seizure, a great forgetting made beautiful. We forget how quickly we forget what is quickly forgotten into a haze of memory, fractal and incomplete. If I were to ask you how many genocides have been perpetrated in your lifetime, would you know? The great fault of collective consciousness is that it forgets what is too painful to understand, and the fault of the individual is that we cannot do the same. How many times have you seen nations fall in and out of being? How often do your thoughts go back to what became of their people? While the images were broadcast of the dead, dying, wounded, helpless, you sat at home and entertained yourself to death. Classification, symbolization, discrimination, dehumanization, organization, polarization, persecution, preparation, extermination, denial. People of Zagreb, the year is 1990 and there are strangers in your city from Titograd, from Ljubljana, from Pristina, from Belgrade, from Sarajevo, from Novi Sad, from Skopje. Strangers who have come to hear music. I have a daughter who reminds me of an office block smouldering in a photograph. I hand her to a man in a blue helmet and watch music performed in neon abstractions on television. And all the world lives their lives, thoughts fading, thoughts replaced by some other tragedy, some other person, some other music from Rome, from Paris, from Dublin, from Reykjavik, from Madrid, from London, from Belgrade, from Copenhagen, from Berlin, from Vienna, from Bern, from Brussels, from Luxembourg, from Nicosia, from Amsterdam, from Stockholm, from Ankara, from Jerusalem, from Athens, from Lisbon, from Oslo, from Helsinki. It comes quickly to us, this forgetting, worrisome forgetting, far too quickly across all our bones have collapsed. Like so many walls, our people have been taken to the hills, to the seas, to the winds, to be anywhere else that may offer safety, as only in safety can we foster forgetting, beautiful forgetting that numbs us to the greatly orchestrated expanse of a cool, well-meaning arm. Big, meaningful, thick, fast, creep into your bones scaremongering. The glistening strings, strange, shimmering, and uncertain, daydreaming video wander through broken hearts to take what is distinct, finally committing to take, casually remove an eerie, elusive beauty. A unique grasp into banality. Truth hardens into platitudes, the pearly music that surrounds the world. The cloistered and isolated soul, admitting a helplessness framed by a giant pair of gnashing teeth, stomach acid exorcism towards unquestioning obedience. Appointments and checklists, logistical arrangements, the impact of trauma, utterly drained glass eyes, long-standing morbid preoccupations, the semblance in the violation of the blood flow, as wide as an ocean, the malevolent wave, a momentary darkness, a wordless moan, in stretch-like forms, a vivisection of transformation, open-hearted, open wounds striking transparency. Some truths just take longer than others. Increasingly unstable, meticulously constructed, cryptic and contentious, a considered filigree sigh, an earnest human sigh, disorienting daisy chain swells, an oral cul-de-sac flickering, massed voices moan, in sloganeering fashion, you have not been paying attention. Wrong, corrupt, diseased, small batch aesthetics, collective fears and night sweats, the dehumanizing technology, recording over static. Similar effects turn up elsewhere, chattering ghost voices split into multitudes. The statement in and of itself, a panic attack coming on again. Masculine vulnerability is remarkable, loneliness transmitting on an overwhelming collective empathy, disappearing behind a veil to re-establish a human connection. Burn the witch nationalism, embracing in constant motion, sharper and more focused, the simple prettiness of oblique harmonies struggling for breath. I have seen hell, past, future, present hell broadcast live on the television. The following footage may be upsetting for some viewers. Rotted skeletons lying as they fell under the trees in the hills above Srebrenica. The men with guitars step forward and the woman in the pink dress drops back. This is not the future I remember, and yet it will come to pass again and again as long as there is blood to run out of our hearts and into the soil, the uncaring, passive soil which lays no claim of its own upon men other than that they will rot. I felt myself pass through the soil like the scan lines on the CRT television, and I surrender myself into the broadcast. Soil, that particular analogue of knowability, when the need to know and the evidence are outweighed by the lack of understanding or memory. And how quickly atrocity lapses into that memory, and that memory into oblivion, fragmentary, inconsistent oblivion, the collective consciousness that strains when directly addressed, that particular unknowability of atrocity, thoughts and actions so repugnant you might draw some secret pleasure from the rendering as fictions. Your feet in Yugoslavia worry themselves into Serbian soil, fingers sing the meat off legs of beef. The Croatian coast looks blue, looks red, looks white, looks like Albania. There is blood in the earth, flowing like a libelous screed. People came here from somewhere else. There is a separation and an otherness that is not. There are people who are not here, and now we view their distant boats as they capsize into the Mediterranean, and too soon an image is a memory, is nothing. The centre cannot hold this deflection of action, deflection of acknowledgement, deflection of accountability. I never mean anything more than what already exists. He made his body become a corpse among corpses, blood and flesh and rags woven together until the night fell. A beautiful word is not an action, but a distraction, but a catalyst. There must be more. We cannot merely observe the scan lines moving over reality. What is it you have done to deserve your complicity in the absence of anything real? To observe atrocity after atrocity on the internet and then forget. The depersonalization of massacre, the entertainment advertorial news. The hatred of our fathers runs into our mouths, streaming from tightly packed red holes, shot blunt into our temples, in our fathers' temples, and their fathers' temples, bleeding into our mouths. This is not the future I remember. This is not the peace I was promised. We have not grown forward. We have not moved wiser. The lessons of our genocides have not been learnt. Our fathers complicit in slavery, complicit of ignorance, complicit of genocide, complicit war hero. Grandfathers who opened fire across a Bosnian schoolyard at men running, and grandfathers who were riddled with bullets and fell. This is not the future I remember. There should be nothing between us but mountains, oceans, skies, forests, barbed wire, concrete, walls of bodies riddled with bullets. Syria, Bosnia, Rwanda, Cambodia. We turn on the television, we dream, we forget.